Now that I have the letters of my graffiti painted and that has established the color I used, I'm going to move on to painting the three-dimensional aspects of those letters. So this is the part in which we use that 1-point perspective to draw a thickness to our letters. I want that color that I choose for this thickness to contrast against the colors I've already chosen, but I don't want them to be the complement. I am using the complementary color to my face of my letters in that key line area. So since I've used red oranges into yellow oranges, I am looking to work with a little bit more of a blue-green to blue-purple range for my key line. Now I'm thinking and leaning more towards the blue-green color. So since I'm going to work with blue-green here, I don't want to use blue-green in my three-dimensional area. I also don't want to use a warm color because I've already used almost every warm color we have in our palette by using the red oranges to yellow oranges for my letters. That wouldn't give me enough contrast. So that limits my colors I can use. So I can use purple, and I can use blue, purple, and blue. And I'm most likely going to go with the purples to the blue-purple range just because that has enough of a distance away from the blue-green I'm going to be using in the background here of that key line. And it will allow every part of my painting to show up then. I'll have the contrast against my warm colors in the three-dimensional part, and by keeping away from the greens, it will contrast against the blue-green color I'll eventually use in my key line. So I'm going to mix up a purple and blue-purple color, and once I have that mixed, I'm going to talk with you about applying that paint to this three-dimensional thickness. So I've mixed up my blue-purple color, and again I've used one of my scrap pieces of paper to test the color. On camera the color difference isn't really showing up, but this swatch here to the right has a touch more of a purple hue to it than the one on the left. And I'm not going to bother to put purple on the plate because I'm going to use purple directly out of the pan as the color it is. So my plan here is, with my 1-point perspective, I have two sides of that three-dimensional area showing. I have a side that is closer to the bottom of the page, so that'd be the areas that are pointing downwards, like the bottoms of my M's, the bottom roundness of the S curve, the bottom of the legs of the A's and the N's, and so forth. And then I have either a left or a right side showing in that three-dimensional side. So that would be areas along the sides of my M's, N's, T's, and depending on which side the letter is on compared to where that vanishing point was, will determine if it's a left side or a right side showing. So I'm going to use both purple and blue purple in this. Now, looking at my colors, blue purple is going to appear slightly darker than purple with the mixture of those two dark colors combined. Purple out of the palette is going to look a lot brighter. So I'm going to determine which parts of that three-dimensionality that I want to be darker and which parts I want to be lighter. I'm going to have the parts facing downwards, so like the bottoms of the legs of the M's, the bottom of the B, A's, and so forth. I'm going to have that my blue-purple color, my darker color. And I'm going to have the sides, whether it's the right side or the left side of the letter showing, be my purple color. My thought behind this is, if my light was coming from more of above, then the bottom parts of those letters would be darker, and the light would have more chance to hit the sides of the letters in a three-dimensional object. So when you do this and you choose your colors, and if you want to use more than one color for the three-dimensional part, you may want to consider what we call a light source. That's the source in which the light would be shining down on to our objects. And then determine what parts of the three-dimensional form would be darkest and what parts would have the chance of a little bit more light showing on it. So I'm going to start with my blue purple. Remember, we want to work one color at a time because I want to have that clear defined edge on each of my letters that I drew with that 1-point perspective. So I can't work with both colors at the same time or they'll bleed together. So just like before, I'm going to work with my color and I'm going to do wet on dry. That will give me a nice clean edge where I need it as I apply the paint. So I have most of the bottoms of my letters painted with that blue purple color. Now there's a couple of areas in which I'm going to have to get a little creative with my painting. So those areas are going to be where I have curves. So here, the bottom of the S where it curves, this would be like the bottom. It faces down towards the paper, but as it curves up towards the top, that becomes more of a side. I also have the bottom of the period at the end of the MS that is already the blue purple. So I don't want to paint this whole curved three-dimensional edge with my blue purple because then these two would match in color and it'd be hard to tell one from the other. So I'm going to create a division line. So I'm going to paint so much of this curve with my blue purple color and then let that dry and then paint the rest of that curve with the purple color. So the idea again is a rounded object, the light's going to hit it, illuminate a side, but as that side turns away from the light, it's going to get darker. The other area in which I had to get a little creative is the bottom of my B. Again, it's more of a flat area. I can't see the curved area, but if I paint the entire bottom of the B blue purple, then it's going to match with the bottom of the period at the end of MS and where the leg of the A touches here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the majority of it the blue purple, but I'm going to try to leave a small area in which I will put some purple color there. That way it's not going to stay white. It'll still be one of my two cool colors for this three-dimensional effect, but it will help separate those areas. So I just wanted to take a moment and explain to you why I haven't painted these yet and my thought process for how I am about to paint those. So I'm going to finish up with my blue purple by adding those areas in, let that all dry before I start into the purple color. So that concludes my blue-purple color. As I stated before, I'm going to let this blue part dry, this blue-purple color dry, and then I'm going to apply the purple color to the sides of my lettering. The blue-purple part of my 3D effect has now dried, so I'm going to add my purple color. So again, I'm just using purple directly out of the set. And since I chose to do the bottom, the parts of my 3D design that faces down towards the bottom of the page, then all my sides that are on the right and left of the letters are going to be the purple color. So I'm just going to fill those areas in. So that is my purple application. As I was applying it, I did notice that there was a spot that I just didn't pay attention to, because when I was working with the blue-purple, I was noticing areas where they could touch and merge together. So I wasn't really looking for those spots during my application in the purple areas. But I did find one here in the end. So you'll notice I left a very thin white area. And I'll do the same thing like I did here to help separate the B, S, and A. And that once this dries, I'm going to come back in with my blue-purple color, because I still have it. And I'm going to fill in that white space with that. And then that way it will keep the two sides of the end that are showing there separate. So that's the only touch-up I will need to do. My next process, now that my three-dimensional area is painted and complete, is to work on my key line and my other background pieces. My key line is going to be the complementary color to the face color of my graffiti. So again, I used red oranges into yellow oranges. I'm going to base it off of the red orange color and go with a blue green color for my complementary color, and that's what I'm going to paint my key line as. As for the arrows that I have placed in my graffiti, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. I'm thinking maybe a yellow color or a yellow green color, just because again I'm thinking of contrast, things that will show up against each other. I don't want to go with another orange or red tone. I don't want to go with a blue-purple or a purple tone. There is red-purple. That could be a possibility. But I think I'll make that judgment after I get my key line painted. So in the next video, we're going to look at painting our key line. And in the final video, we'll look at painting any of our extra parts to our graffiti that haven't been covered yet. And that will finish our graffiti project. So I'll see you next video.